Hi everyone, my name is Andrew. Welcome to the webinar today on automation. I can see we already have a few people joining. There's actually a lot of people joining in today. And so it was really nice to see everyone joining in. So we'll just wait a little bit longer and we'll start in about a minute's time. There's still a lot of people joining in. We had a lot of people registered for this webinar. So it'll be nice to see everybody come in. So we'll just wait another 30 seconds or so before we get started. Thank you everyone for your patience. Okay, awesome. Hi everyone again to everyone that's joined and thank you all for your patience. The ones that came in joined a little bit earlier. Seems like people are still joining, but we'll kick off this webinar. The webinar is going to be recorded, so it will be available for later viewing. And just before we start, so if you guys don't know me already, my name is Andrew. I've been working with the assistants for some time now and really love working with small businesses, especially businesses that are in their growth stages and looking to further automate their processes and systemize all their workflows to be able to better manage and make better decisions and kind of be able to focus more on, I guess, those revenue generating activities. And if you do have any questions, we do have a Q&A box. Please pop in your questions into the Q&A box. And then from there, if I have some time, I will answer them. Alternatively, I'll get back to everybody individually with some answers to their questions and then draft up a little email that kind of covers everyone's concerns and questions to everyone after the webinar. So before we get started, if you do have any concerns, any questions that you don't want to leave in the chat box, you can also contact us at support@dsystems.com and people can go ahead and raise that ticket to me. And then also you can phone us on that following number or even send us a WhatsApp message. So you can go ahead and utilize those channels over there that's been mentioned on the screen to reach out to us. And there's still people joining. So, wow, really humbled with the amount of people that has joined. So it's nice to see everybody. A lot of familiar names there. And we'll go ahead. We'll continue. So in today's agenda, what we're going to cover is pretty much talk about what is purchase order automation, like what is PO automation. What are the steps if I want to automate my purchase order? What are the workflow steps? What are the key benefits? And then from there, I'll take you through a live demo. Now, in terms of some people might be doing things in their purchase order process that they're not aware of. They don't realize that these are actual steps, just the way they've been doing it for such a long time. So what is purchase order automation, and why do we need to automate this process? So I put a little quote on here. The procurement process automation is simply the management of the entire procure to pay cycle using technology instead of traditional manual methods. So what this means is that everything from raising a purchase order, getting the purchase order approved if you have different people that are doing different roles, getting that purchase order approved, sending that purchase order out, receiving the order, and verifying the order, plus also getting the build and the finance team to pay for it. So it's about keeping everyone in the loop, um, and just removing those manual methods. So, you shouldn't have someone printing out a purchase order, leaving it on your desk for you to review and sign off on it. It should be done automatically, and it should be done utilizing technology, just to reduce human error, reduce the number of chats that needs to go on, and reduce people just walking around the office or the warehouse trying to get things done. Um, and that's why companies need to automate their purchasing process, is to actually allow them to focus on revenue generating activities and less on what we call cost center activities, such as managing purchase orders, managing supplier invoices, managing the receiving. Did we receive it? How much did we receive in? So all of that hopefully contributes to the cost saving, and then freeing up time to be able to go ahead and focus on more of those crucial tasks that needs to get done to move the business forward. Um, and on top of that, you want to have better visibility, um, manage your cash flow better as well, because you're more in the loop, you know what's going on. So you're managing your cash flow better. And also, if you need to, meet some compliance requirements. So from here, let's jump into what are some of the purchase order steps. So some people might not even realize that they're doing these steps in their purchase order because they've just been doing it for such a long time. It's become second habit, and there's a lot of steps involved actually. So I've identified 5 common steps in the purchase order process. One is raising the purchase order. So someone going there, looking at what needs to be ordered, and then actually raising the actual purchase order, whether it's from a few lines on an order to hundreds, if not thousands of lines on a particular order. So actually doing that work. From there, sending the purchase order to be approved and authorized. So whether that's by the CEO, the manager, the operations manager, whoever has that authority, getting them to approve it. And then from there, once it's been approved, issuing that purchase order to the supplier and receiving confirmation. So actually emailing out or printing and then emailing out the PDF to the supplier, and then supplier emailing back saying, yes, I can fulfill this order. From there, once you receive the invoice or your purchase order bill, having that bill entered into the system, the finance team being notified, and then for the payment to be made, and then for also the sales manager or the operations manager to be notified that, hey, the payment on this invoice has been made. So you can go ahead and start expecting the receiving of this stock, because sometimes the suppliers don't, most of the time, suppliers don't send stock until some sort of a payment has been made. So whether it's a 20% deposit, 50% payment, or full payment. And then it's the receiving of the stock. So actually receiving into the warehouse the stock and having someone verify. So one step being the receiving, the second step being the verifying. So this is all very, um, might seem just one person is doing this, but there's actually a few parties involved. So everyone from who's maybe the sales managers who's taking care of low stock levels, to the operations and warehouse managers who are taking care of stock receiving, the finance team of the payments, the bookkeeper, whether it's that there's external people as well, whether there might be a 3PL involved. So there's a lot of people involved in this party, and managing this can become quite a bit of a headache. So hopefully building out a bit of a workflow. So I do encourage everybody, every business is kind of unique, to actually map out their purchasing workflow, and sit there and see what steps are actually involved, what steps am I doing, what steps can be automated. Does person X need to actually walk over to the accounts team or the bookkeeper team or call them to say, hey, we've made this invoice, can you please put it onto the next payment cycle? Can that be automated? So it's all about keeping everyone in the loop with doing the minimum as possible to manage the whole process. Now, moving on to the actual purchase order workflow. Now, I've set up a little bit of an example here. Now, I know it's not going to be identical to what everyone kind of goes through. Everyone is different. Every business is different. But I do have a supplier in my test account, and the supplier is called ABC Furniture. And what I've said is that once if I raise a purchase order to ABC Furniture, and if the PO is greater than $1,000, um, please notify the sales manager of all POs. So that's the manager being sales manager is my manager who is taking care of raising the purchase orders. Then that manager needs to be approved, and then take the approval from the finance manager. They'll confirm it. They can either accept or reject the order, and we'll go through this in a little bit more detail when we're doing the live demo. But from there, they can notify it, raise the purchase order invoice, and then go ahead and then get it paid. Now, once the PO has been paid, the sales manager can also get notified automatically saying, hey, this PO for this invoice has been made. And now you can also expect an arrival where the warehouse manager gets notified that there's going to be receiving stock. Once stock has been received into the system, an internal task can be assigned where the warehouse manager can actually go and verify that the stock has been received. So if there was a miscount, if stock wasn't put away into the right places, or simply someone might have received the order without having to actually receive the actual goods accidentally. So it's all about making sure that you're putting processes in place to automate the entire workflow from A to Z. So from everyone from raising a purchase order, getting it approved, from getting it approved to the billing, to getting the paid, to letting the warehouse guys know that there's going to be an order coming in so they can get the warehouse ready, receiving of the stock, and then from there, making sure that the right stock has been actually received in. So these are quite crucial steps involved in the whole process. Now, from here, I'm going to go ahead and speak a little bit about just general benefits of the automation process. What are some of the benefits of building out such a process and building out into a system? So now, in terms of the benefits of getting something like this in, is better cost control. So if everyone's kept in loop, there's no surprise bills. There's no, I forgot to pay for this. I didn't know we had to make payment. We missed the payment. So the order is going to be late and we missed that shipment date. So it's all about better cost control, better cash flow management. Most importantly, reducing wasted time and pretty much creating efficiency. So most lean operations is not just about I have raised a purchase order in time, but a lean operation also includes that everyone involved in that process is kept up to loop, nothing is missed, and everything that should have been authorized is authorized, and anything that should have been vetted is vetted to make sure everything is being done correctly. So you can actually rely on the system to have accurate data because everyone has followed what they need to do. So, but also at the same time, if you're automating the process, you don't have employees filling up their time with a lot of tedious tasks and requirements and chasing up people. Everything can be done through emails, automatic approval processes, and task notifications within the system. And most importantly, should reduce the overheads. So this creates better visibility, quicker decision making, and overall just reduce on time that's spent on raising and managing purchase orders. So that's the biggest thing. It's about reducing human time, employee time that's spent. Employees being one of the more um, cost heavy side of the business in terms of cost. So being able to reduce that, that's quite significant. And then also, if you do have new staff coming in, having an automated process, a clear workflow will help to really cut down the learning curve and get them up and running really quickly. From here, what I'm going to do is jump into, as I mentioned, this is just another slide, just some key points. Automated systems help with collaboration between different departments. So all departments are kept in a loop. In short, taking tedious tasks away and making decision and approvals via email, so no one has to walk up to anybody to get an approval, and everything is recorded, so everyone's kept informed. And escalating critical issues. So if something does go wrong, if someone does reject something, it can get escalated straight away. People can know about it right away and they can act. Um, and most importantly, you can assign tasks internally. So assigning tasks internally means that the warehouse manager has a task to complete to verify the stock. And that task will sit there as pending till they have verified the stock and completed it. So that's the most important thing. So no task goes overhand, because in fast-paced businesses, especially in warehouses where it's very fast-moving, it can be a little bit chaotic at times. People forget to check off certain things or move any tasks. So what I'll do from here is actually jump into our my live account. So what I'll do is go ahead and get into my Dear account. Once I'm in this account, so what I'll do is just apologize for this. Just get into the right. Sorry, just using a universal testing account from here. So I have a shop called Corner Shop Limited from here. And what I can do is where you can find the automation module is under settings and automation. Now, if your layout is a little bit different, you can change the layout by clicking on this paint icon. And you can change it from vertical, which is this layout to the left, to horizontal. So I'm going to be using the horizontal layout, but it's exactly the same where everything is at. So click on automation. This is the automation module. Now there's a few things that I want to go through before jumping into it. We got things such as mailing list. So this is where you can create different types of mailing lists. So for example, we can create someone as a director. We can create finance managers, sales reps, warehouse managers. To create a mailing list, and these can also be external people. They don't have to be people that are internal with the business. So if you're using a 3PL, it could be a 3PL's email address. Or if you're using an outsourced bookkeeper, it could be your outsourced bookkeeper's email address. Now you can just put in a name here. For example, I want to put CEO here. And what I can do is start adding email here, support at thesystems.com. And by using a comma, I can just go ahead and keep adding email addresses in. So that's like the list view. You can just dump a bunch of email addresses in here, or I can make it a table format where it's just each email address, and I can just keep adding email addresses. So I'll just jump back into, that's how you create mailing lists in the automations module. You also have what's called notifications. So I'll quickly just touch on that. Notifications, it's been covered previously in other webinars, but what simply means that once an event occurs, it's not a workflow, but once an event occurs, you can go ahead and trigger a notification to be sent out because of an event. Now, for example, in the purchases, you can say that once a back ordered item is received into stock, notify someone. So you can say notify someone internally, or by email, or external. So these can be just internal people that get notified within so notification will come through as a notification here at the bell icon as a notification. An email will be, you can assign a mailing list. So we can say, once that comes in, let notify the warehouse managers. These are just notifications. Again, it's not a workflow. There's no tasks assigned to them. It's just a notification. So I'll let this, we have great documentation on this. So I'll let you guys go and have a play around with this and watch and go through our documentation. But so pretty much that's the notifications. And then I'll jump back into task settings before we get started. So you can create certain tasks in task categories. I've set some tasks here, one for workflows, and I've created one saying purchases. And then you can actually view all your task settings here. So I've created one that says purchases, application to purchases. You can have it to suppliers, sales. But in this example, we're just going to focus on purchases just because of time. And these are the mandatory fields, and then its due dates are based on previous tasks completion dates or workflow start dates. And then we can have certain things like purchase quota has been authorized, so Andrew gets notified, and so forth. And you can have leave in as to move to the next working day, to have it as a previous working day. So you can set up some tasks here and set up some date ranges for these tasks. And you can create new tasks by clicking on this new task button. Just going back to that list and then back to our automations module. We're going to focus on workflows for today, especially with a focus on purchase order. So clicking on workflows, I've created one, just being mindful of time here. So I've created one called sales process automation, just for one for sales as well, and purchase automation workflow. Now, if I click on this purchase automation workflow, you can see the name here, and it's again on purchases, and it's sitting as active. We can always deactivate a purchase. So what I've said here, and I've configured the first rule, and we can click on configure configuration, and you can configure it here. But simply, if I click on supply name, what I'm saying here is that you can select any of these. So it's the invoice total or supply name. But in this instance, I want to set up my workflow by saying if supply name equals to ABC Furniture, and we can have things like contains or does not contain or leave empty, ABC Furniture, and the purchase order total, and again, we can select this from here, is greater than or equal to, and we have greater than, less than or equal to, not equal to. So I've said greater than or equal to $1,000. I want this to be not to be triggered. So that's my first condition. Then we create another condition called notify. In this instance, I'm going to notify my sales manager via email, and I'm going to attach the purchase order. From there, also, I need to be confirmed by the finance manager by email and attach the purchase order and wait 1 day and do not retry to send it to them once I've sent it to them. When there's no response from them about the authorization from the finance manager, I can either just skip the task. What you can do, you can automatically undo, void, or redirect. And when rejection is received, if it's received, you can notify the sales manager by email, again with the purchase order attached. So you can build out quite complex workflows. And again, every business is unique. Every business has its own particular workflows, different departments. Some departments are amalgamated into one. From there, what I've said is that the purchase order approval, sales reps, email, and just without attachment here at the moment. So they'll just get whether this purchase order has been approved or not. And then purchase invoice authorization. So once a purchase order invoice is authorized, we can get the sales manager to be notified via email, and again, by the thing, and then wait 1 day and do not retry. We can say retry. So 1 time, 2 times, 6 times, we can keep retrying the same email. And when not paid, sales manager can get a notification. And then when it's paid, they can also get a notification. So the sales manager will get notified. And then purchase stock received authorization. Now, what this means is that warehouse manager will get an email saying that the purchase order has been authorized, the stock has been received in, and they will need to verify the stock. So this is an internal notification. So create task, verify stock. I can click on it, and we can name it whatever we want, and we can actually select what it needs to be. Stock receive date is the date that needs to be done. Task due date within 1 day of this, and then we can put a little description here as well that needs to be go with the task notification. And from there, we can also notify the manager, warehouse manager, by email. So once this is all saved, it's going to be make a lot more sense when we see it in action. So once I've built this out, and we do have, again, documentations and solution guides on building out these workflows, let's go ahead and raise a purchase order. Now, to create a purchase order is quite simple. So I'm just going to jump into my simple purchases here. going to select the supplier, ABC Furniture, and I'm selected invoice first. All the information will pre-populate, and I'm just going to go ahead and start raising my order. So I'm going to go ahead and raise a few products here. So I want to buy 100 units of this, and I'm going to go ahead and purchase another 100 units of this, and $10. So that's fine, and that's my total amount here. Everything's here. If I wanted to add any additional costs, I can here leave an order memo, but for now I'm just going to go ahead and then authorize it. Now this authorization, what it's going to do is going to leave it for approval. Now because I am the person who's going to be approving it, it'll appear here, the approval button. But what simply has is that the purchase order is not authorized at the moment. So I can't jump into the invoice. I can't jump into stock received. I can attach, look at the logs. But what I'm waiting for right now to come through the screen is an email, which pretty much asks me if I want to approve or reject. This email takes a couple of minutes for it to be sent out. While we wait for that to come in, what we are pretty much saying here is that this order has now been, for example, put into the system. We've sent it for approval to be approved by whichever department is responsible for approving. So whether that's even the business owner, the director, the overall manager. And now what we can see as email has come through. So I'll just bring that over into the screen. What we can see is that it's saying that the purchase order has been approved. Let's jump to another email. And what we're looking for is, I'll just open up my emails here. It's a very simple thing. So we can see my orders come through here. I can click accept. And what it does, it will go ahead and approve that email. So if I just go ahead and refresh the screen, it's going to go ahead and approve that purchase order that I just accepted through my email. And then once I've been approved, I can go ahead and email it out from the system or print it as a PDF. So once it's been approved, simply so an email has been sent saying this is going to be approved and this has been approved and processed. Now, once it is approved, what would happen is that I can go ahead now and jump into the invoice. Once I do receive the invoice from my supplier, putting the invoice number in, put the dates in, say copy in, any additional information that needs to be entered can be entered, and I can go ahead and authorize this. Once this has been authorized, another email will get prepared saying, please make payment. So another email just got received saying, please make payment for invoice. And once I have made payment, so then the finance manager that's got that email can come in, click on make payments. Again, if they're using an accounting application, they can go ahead and make the payment and reconcile it against the bank, and then that payment will flow through. But for now, I'll just make a manual payment against this amount for 22,000 and apply it. And once that payment, oh sorry, whoops, let me get rid of this line here and save it. And once this has been, the payment's applied, I'm just going to wait for the verification to come through, and we can, okay, yep, got the email now. We can see that saying salesperson has been notified saying that payment for ABC Furniture, this invoice has been preceded and receiving stock. So now I've been told that, hey, this invoice has been paid, so it's going to be received in. Some time goes past, the warehouse team receive it, and what they can do is copy it from invoice or use a barcode scanner or a WMS device to receiving all the stock. Once they've received in the stock, click on authorize. Once the stock receipt has been authorized, what that's going to do in the back end, the software is going to generate another email and an internal task to be sent to the warehouse person to say, hey, this stock has been received in. Can you please verify that this is correct? So the warehouse manager's job is to make sure that the stock has been received in. So if I just go ahead and refresh this screen, it takes about a minute or two for this task to be created in the back end. Once this task has been created, you can see there's a task here that says verify stock. I can complete it. It says, hey, please do you want to verify the stock to confirm? I can go in and have a look against the shelves, whatever I need to do to verify that I did actually receive 100 units of each in, and the guys did a correct job putting them into the right places. And then from there, again, click on here and then complete the task. So once the task has been completed, we've now successfully managed to automate all the communication for each single step in the purchase order procurement. So once we raise the purchase order, the emails start getting sent out for it to be accepted or rejected. Once it is accepted, then they can jump into the invoice and sort of into the PO, send the PO out into the invoice. Once the invoice has been received, enter the invoice in. Invoice gets sent to sales manager, finance manager. Finance manager makes a payment. The teams are notified that a payment has been made, and they should await for stock receiving. Once stock has been received, then the warehouse manager can verify that the stock has actually been received. I think another thing to also to mention here, we do have an enhancement that's it's going to be coming out soon. It's going to be around invoice amounts and order amounts. So if the order amount is slightly different or higher than the invoice amount, this can also be triggered to be rejected or reviewed or redirected to someone else. So if there are different stages or different amounts that have been received into the system, if the dollar amount's wrong, you're getting overcharged or undercharged, you can get a discrepancy email to say, hey, these amounts are different. And as normal, you can also jump into credit notes, manual journal entries, but this entire process has now been automated. So this is all process after it's been automated. You can also do this for your sales. Jumping back into the automation module here, you can build very complex workflows both for your sales and purchasing. As again, today we focused on our purchase order automation. And I'll just jump back into here again. So this is the workflow that I've built. It takes a little bit of time to build that out, but once it's built, it operates pretty smoothly from there, and it's very quickly to amend. So for example, in the purchase order approval, I previously didn't have we went out without an attachment. Now I can say attach a purchase order. So it says with attach, and then all I have to do is just save it, and it's saved. So you can very quickly do minor adjustments. So if you're feeling more comfortable and want to change that dollar amount, you can say, hey, actually anything up to $5,000, I don't want to approve because everything's working fine. Everything's been fine. So I want to adjust that to 5,000. Once it's built out, it's very easy to tweak the workflow to better manage and better align it with your workflow processes. From here, I'm just going to jump back into presentation here. So that's pretty much the workflow automation tool webinar. So I'm just going to, there's a few questions here and I will do my best to answer them. But I'm just going to leave this information here. So if anybody has any issues, they can always email support@thesystems.com. or get in touch with us with these following numbers. Now, with some questions that was mentioned. So there's a few mentions about, we'll have to get through these questions. Some questions I might have to ask, either ask our technical team or get back to you for more, to get more information from you to be able to further understand what you're actually asking. Now, there was one question about if we could put a requirement date on each line of the PO. Currently, that is not available, to have a requirement date per line. I could see how that could, in some cases, be something useful. I can definitely, what I can do is have that escalated to our team. So what they're asking, someone has asked the question whether can we put a requirement date per line item on the PO. Right now, that's not available, but we can definitely answer that. I could put that out to our technical team after this webinar. And also there's been another question around sales order. So sales orders, definitely some of the processes in the sales order automation can happen. So you can build out workflows for sales orders. So it's about tying a sales order into the manufacturing. To be honest, I'm not 100% sure, but that's a very good question. The question is about sales orders being authorized, and from there, a specific finished good with a PO equivalent for the bill of materials to be created. So to automate that entire process. Currently, I don't think we have that fully available, but I believe there's a few things in the pipeline that might be able to better suit that requirement. But again, another great question. Currently, we don't do, and happy to escalate that to our technical team. And then there was another question, can we receive stock into different bin locations and different quantities? The answer is yes, we definitely can. So if I raise the purchase order, that's to say for 100 units of a particular good, then we can definitely go ahead and receive 25 into one bin location, another 25 into another bin location, a 50 into another location. So you can definitely do that. We also had some questions about how do you add comments or notes to go with the authorized process that appears within the outgoing emails. Very good question. So what I'll do is just jump back into my test account there. We do still have some time available. So what I'll do is just jump into my test account and we can go ahead and test that out for you. So I'm just here in my test account, guys. So what we can do is when you say sales manager, for example, to be notified via email, so email, and then if you click on this little email logo that comes up, you can start typing in what needs to be said. So you can say, hi, sales manager, please inform, and then you can add in the PO number here that has been authorized, and confirm receiving doc, and so forth. So we can quite type in anything up here to automate it. So a lot of these texts can be automated. So anything that has a little, little mail icon on it, click on it, you can automate it. And you can type in anything you like. There are some mail merge fields that are available, so you can utilize them as well. But you can pretty much type into here, put in instructions, and it's quite animated. So you can make it look like however you want. So that was a very good question that came up. And from here, I will just keep going with answering some of these other questions. There's some good questions around velocity reporting. We'll have to cover that a little bit later. So maybe after the webinar, what I'll do is put together a little kind of step-by-step guide into about velocity reporting and populating POs and so forth from there. So something I can cover definitely up after the webinar. Is it possible to add multiple suppliers into a purchase workflow? Yes, it is. You just have to add them as separate line items. Are we able to duplicate workflows? At the moment, we don't have a duplication button to exactly duplicate it, but this is something that potentially could be an enhancement down the track. But I have to check with our BA team to get back to if that is even possible, and that's something we could do in the future. And so there's a question about might need some more information around this, but can we do bulk imports on updating purchase orders? You could do bulk imports. So whether it's importing the actual purchase order itself or whether it's just the line items, you can actually export out and import in the line items of a purchase order. So I'm not sure if that's what's being asked, but what I'll do is reach out to the person that asked that question, get more clarification, and then put in a response. So there's a lot more questions coming through here, and hopefully I can answer some of these. And so there's some very specific questions, so I'll leave them for later and reach out personally myself to be able to reach out to. Okay, guys, so there's a lot of questions that's coming through, and it seems that there's a lot of deep questions here. So what I'll do is grab all these questions, formulate a response to everybody, just to be, quite aware that we went through a basic scenario of the purchase order automation workflow here, and then from there we can obviously do. Again, there's so many different businesses. Everyone's got unique workflows and ways of doing their purchasing management. So came up with a basic universal workflow situation here. So please don't hesitate to jump in and play around with yourself. Again, a lot of good questions that came through, but it seems like I need to have a quick chat with everybody or just have a quick reach out, gather a little bit more information, and then put together a response. And those responses, I can make it generic and then email it out to everybody that attended this webinar. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and end the webinar now. And if there's any more questions, please go ahead and just drop it in. There's a lot of questions that came through, and hopefully we can go ahead and yeah, so there's definitely a lot of questions. So I would have to review everybody, get some more clarification around exactly what the question is trying to say, and I will formulate an answer and get back to everyone. And then after this, hopefully by early next week, I will put together a nice email covering all the questions that was asked and covering anything that people might have wanted to see that wasn't covered in this webinar. So thank you for everyone for joining. So I'll go ahead.